Hello everyone, and our beloved potato daughter waifu Cheyanne is finally here in Global. And I know a lot of you have been waiting and saving for her since she was announced in CN. So if you want her for her characteristics and for your dorm, you should definitely go get her. But I also gotta be upfront with you, if you are considering pulling her for meta values, it's not gonna be an easy recommendation. But why is that? Isn't she one of the highest DPS in the game, even more than Voimastina? Well, yeah, and we are going to discuss all that with her kit, her gameplay style, Vertebrae, weapons, keys, where she fits into the physical team, and most importantly, what your pull strategy actually needs to look like with her, because it's a bit complicated. So let's get into it. Okay, so TLDR first. Cheyanne is a physical damage dealer DPS using sniper rifle. Her whole job is a glass cannon who does single target burst. Not a support, not a hybrid, she is a pure dedicated boss killer with zero AoE anywhere in her kit. She can be used as either the hyper carry or the sub DPS of the physical team alongside Voimastina. But here's the catch. She is genuinely not very worth at low investment, and in the true sense an either V0 or V6 type of unit. At V0 she is playable but nowhere close to her real identity and is very comparable to like a V0 R1 Ulrich. That's it. Her damage curve is extremely backloaded and she basically needs to be built all the way to V6 before she is worth running as your actual carry. V3 and V4 can be considered good stopping points on the way, but on their own they are not my recommended pulls. You are either committing all the way to V6 or if you are tight on pulls, you are better off skipping your own copy entirely and borrowing a whale friend or guildmate's fully built one for boss content. Adding to that, her being a single target only, no AoE, very low effective HP where she can die extremely easily unlike any other dolls, and her being a physical unit makes her way less versatile as a general pull choice. She won't be very useful in mob content like the new upcoming tower climbing game mode, and is mainly just a boss specialist full stop. Physical has been struggling as the lowest meta team in CN for a while, and I hope Asteria can change that, hopefully, let's see. But otherwise yes, unless you are dedicated to building your best physical team with her V6, or you just want to waifu pull her at V0, I think it's absolutely fine to skip her completely and keep saving for probably Alter Groza, who should be coming soon and is way more worth and versatile for everyone, arguably the best unit. But it's not all doom and gloom guys. We know Micah will rotate the meta to make physical great again, give Voimastina and Cheyanne some OP expansion keys and they will be back on top soon. Well, in global she is still gonna be very OP right now, especially for the coming Gunsmoke boss season. And like I told, she actually shines the most in single target boss burst. She even outperforms Voimastina and can hit like 8 mil damage on a single hit at full investment. So she will melt the boss very fast. And her range is unlimited, like actually the full map, no positioning requirement to hit her target. If you are going for her high investment, then her signature weapon is worth getting, but otherwise, if it's just a V0 Cheyanne, it's perfectly fine to work with F2P Samosek. So basically the pull advice here is that don't half invest. Either if you can afford, go all in toward V6 and her signature if you want her as your account's physical carry, or probably skip your own copy entirely and lean on borrowing for the boss content she is actually built for. There isn't much of a comfortable middle ground with this one. And if you are waifu pulling for your dorm, then yes, absolutely nothing should stop you. Okay, now let's get into her actual skill kit. Her skill 1 is the one you'll start the battle with. Using it grants her Mimosa's Calyx, which gives her a massive 50% attack and 20% crit rate boost. This is the skill that creates the tent. She basically stays there whole game and continues sniping with her unlimited range. No need to move her at all because she has very low mobility otherwise. While in the tent, she can't be targeted by an enemy attack if there's other allies on field and is immune to any displacement effects. But remember, you can still get hit by enemy AoE attacks. And there's another catch, and this matters. While it's active, her HP becomes only 30% of her max and her defense becomes 0. This is what makes her a glass cannon and she can die pretty easily in this state if you can't heal her. But there's some protection for that too. If she takes what would be a lethal damage while holding this buff, instead of dying she drops smoke tiles around herself for one turn and becomes invincible while standing on them. But that safety net only fires once per battle, so keep that in mind. Also, this skill gives her an extra command so you can follow up with another skill on the same turn. Her skill 2 is a full map range 80% attack single target physical damage and it slaps the target with Bullseye, a debuff that cuts their defense by 50% against Cheyanne's own attacks. This is her setup tool for her main damage, but there can only be one active Bullseye at a time. Before her ultimate, let's talk about her passive first. This applies analysis score to all enemies at the start of battle. Analysis score is a Cheyanne specific counter thing that starts out at 100% value. When Cheyanne attacks, if the analysis score on an enemy is greater than or equal to 50%, then her crit damage is boosted by 30% and it ignores 6 stability. And if the value was less than 50%, then crit damage is boosted by 10% and ignores 3 stability. After she deals damage to the enemy, she consumes 30% analysis score from them. That's how it works. Now coming back to the passive, every time an enemy finishes their turn, Cheyanne automatically fires Deliberate Action, a free 120% attack hit up to 180% if the target's analysis score is over 50%, plus 2 stability damage and 1 confectance regained. This can trigger up to twice per round, so she is basically getting free extra support attacks, and this is how she funds her ultimate's confectance cost. When in a boss fight, since there's only one enemy, you need a specific fixed key to get the 2 times effect for this. Oh, and also her passive lets her do 20% more damage to flying enemies. Cute. And now her ultimate. This is her main damage source. It's a full map single target massive 200% attack physical hit at base that also resets the target's analysis score. If they are holding bullseye, her crit damage against them goes up another 30% on top. This is where her real damage comes from. And that's her whole kit. It's pretty simple to be honest. So now let's talk about her Vertebrae options. This is where the investment conversation really starts. Like I said before, if you are just pulling her for waifu reasons or collection purposes, or even maybe just as a physical DPS if you are lacking others, then V0 is just fine since she doesn't really have any significant mechanics locked behind any higher dupes, and you mostly get her as a complete unit already at V0. But it won't be a high damage dealer, and that's when you need to go for our V6, and some of the good breakpoints in between are V3 and V4. With V3, bullseye defense reduction jumps to a full 100% and attacking a bullseye target no longer consumes their analysis score at all, so you can maintain above 50% analysis score much more easily. And V4 gives her a new stacking attack buff up to 60% max when in the tent, as well as makes her smoke tiles last longer and cover more range. So at this point, she becomes a lot more comfortable to play, but she is still pretty behind on her damage peak potential. And that is at V6. Both her V5 and V6 gives her ult and her support attack very high additional damage multipliers. So by this point, her ult has like 620% damage multiplier on top of all the attack boosts and crit damage boosts, as well as 150% defense reduction by herself. This is when she shines the most as the biggest single target hitter in the game. For her weapon considerations, her signature is what you should be giving her if you are investing on her highly, at least if you are going for V3+. It gives her more physical damage and more defense ignore, exactly what she needs, so makes complete sense. But you don't have to have this at lower dupes since you won't be the hyper carry at that stage, so there's diminishing returns on this investment. If you have Bittersweet Caramel, the Macchiato signature sniper, that is a strong substitute. It ignores 10% of the target's defense on every hit and has a mechanic where taking a certain number of hits outside her own turn builds towards a bonus on her next active attack, which lines up reasonably well with how often her passive is triggering off enemy turns. This sniper is like the most universally usable one, I swear. For the fully F2P route, standard SSR Samoseg is also serviceable with pretty good base stats. For weapon attachments, run the physical boost set, easy choice there. But if you don't want to farm a new set, I guess you can also use melee set or phase strike if you already have those and nothing else. Do keep in mind phase strike won't be effective in a full physical team. Substat priority is attack percentage first, then flat attack, then crit rate, then crit damage. Target numbers to aim for are 4.4k plus attack, 80% crit rate and 150% crit damage. For fixed keys, her main recommendation is fixed key 5, Psychological Resilience, which boosts damage to bullseye holders by 10% and treats it as a heavy ammo weakness hit. Since her own attacks are heavy ammo type, that's a clean consistent bonus. If you are playing her in boss fights, fixed key 6, Total Focus is necessary. It makes her passive trigger extra hits of a single bullseye holding target, basically squeezing 2 passive procs worth of value out of 1. For mobbing stages, fixed key 4, Social Maladjustment, is the pick instead, since it automatically passes bullseye onto the next highest HP enemy whenever the current holder dies. And lastly, fixed key 3, Brave Little Step is your final slot, which creates a high ground to position her better at the start. Her own common key is a good one, suitable for her with 10% damage boost passive. Besides that, you can also give her Lenny, Yuhi, Vepli, these common keys. For remolding core flowers, run 2 attack boost, 2 pinpoint specialization and 2 precision blow. prioritize getting physical boost, onslaught stance, and physical smite, onslaught mastery, these substats to get them maxed on the flower rolls. Looking at her team options, physical is the only best in slot option for her right now with Voimastina and Yuhi as the other cores, and then it's Lenny plus Ulrid or Diane. We don't have any other new physical dolls in the CN either, as Asteria is getting released right now, so we will have to see how she fits in this team, and hopefully she can revive the physical comp because it's performing the worst there. That said, Cheyanne slots in as the archetype's premier single target damage dealer and boss killer. She pairs well with other physical sub-damage dealers who put on extra defense thread, since that fits directly into her bullseye and analysis core interactions, and you will still want your usual all-around physical support Yuhi in the back, handling heals, cleanse and defense down to keep the team ticking. While Alter Groza is one of the most versatile units fitting in every team comp, she is especially better on elemental teams, but regardless, she is so OP that she can easily replace either of Ulrid or Diane as the 5th slot in this team when she comes. Besides pure physical team comps, you can also use V2R1 Lorelei as one of the units right now to take advantage of her buffs, or also hybrid corrosion team with Basti and Klukai duo, so you basically end up playing all 3 top DPSs of the game in the same team. Her rotation is simple in concept but only slightly differs between at V6 and before that. You usually always open with her S1 to set up the tent, follow with S2 to slap bullseye onto your target, then fire the ultimate whenever it's up for the big hit, and simply rotate that. The one thing you have to remember is that moving cancels her tent buff entirely, so you need to plant her in position before activating it and just leave her there. Once you are at V6, you will want to set up full stacks from her new passive buff before starting to do her ult damage, so you end up taking a bit more time to set up first, but then you can reap the rewards with her mega new cults. In any physical team rotation, you always start with Yuhi, then your other sub DPS units like Lenny, Ulrid, Diane, etc. and then comes Cheyanne, followed by Voimastina at the end. And when playing Alter Groza, she goes even after that at the very end. Alright, final verdict. Besides pulling her for waifu reasons, which you always should if you want to, Cheyanne is not a unit you can casually pull and expect her to do insane damage from the get-go. She is a high investment requirement doll to be in the meta. So unless you are dedicated to physical team, or if you can't commit to high investments, honestly consider skipping her entirely and just borrowing a friend or guildmate's fully built copy whenever you need her for boss content. That's going to get you more value than a half-built copy of your own. But if you are building towards a serious physical team and don't already have other strong DPS options, Cheyanne is worth prioritizing. She is currently the best single target physical damage dealer in the game, and that's not nothing for boss content. Starting with just at V0 is perfectly fine to get your physical team DPS feel, but if you can commit, the path is V3, then V4, her signature weapon, and ideally all the way to V6 where she actually becomes the boss shredder you want her to be. And that's the full rundown on Cheyanne. Genuinely one of the more demanding units to build right now, but also genuinely one of the scariest once she is finished. Let me know in the comments, are you committing to V6, are you pulling just V0, or are you skipping and saving everything towards someone else? Drop your plans below. Honestly, I'm still undecided. I don't really need her, and I would rather spend my pulls on getting my Klukai maxed right now, but also on the other hand, I might end up with just V0 of her for collection purposes, cause why not? How can I ignore her? If this video helped, leave a like and subscribe, hit the hype button, join the channel membership or send a super thanks if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's gonna be the Lucy video very soon. Goodbye.